Welcome to INCRadio, South Central States. We thank you for joining us here this morning. It is a really nice morning here in the Fort Worth area. Of course, I'm your host, Nathan Russell, and today we're going to talk about travel mishaps, travel disasters. We're going to be sharing some stories today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, who's joining me here in studio.
Hello, it's Arnie again from Fort Worth.
All right, thank you. And then we also have a remote guest who's called in this morning. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, this is Charlene from Dallas.
All right, and then we also have Melanie, who unfortunately doesn't have her own camera, but she's joining us off camera. Go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie. I'm from Fort Worth. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Travel mishaps and disasters. So we got quite a mix of stories that we have today. And of course, those of you out in live chat land, please drop your comments. We have our question of the day. What are your own travel mishap stories? We'd love to hear them and read them out on air. But we're going to go ahead and start with you, Arnie. What is your first story on travel mishaps?
Okay, so from my first one, I was a teenager, and my sisters and I went to Hawaii for the first time with my uncle. And back then, my parents only gave us $25 to last for a whole week in Hawaii. And even back then, $25 is not enough. And so we made it probably halfway through, and a friend of ours who came with us went to a really nice establishment and bought himself a really nice leather jacket. But halfway through our trip, we ran out of money, and so we had to convince him to return his jacket, because it was over $200, to return his jacket so that we could have money for food.
So what did you end up eating on such a low budget?
So, well, we were craved. The hotel we had luckily had a kitchen, so we did go grocery and we would cook our meals. Other times we'd eat like at fast food joints. Fortunately, in Hawaii, the different fast food joints that even though they have it here on mainland, they have different things that's specifically to Hawaii. So it wasn't too bad. But a lot of times we just ended up cooking meals at the hotel.
Yeah, I know that like here in the States, we have like apple pies in a lot of our fast food establishments. I know when you go to the Philippines, they have pineapple pies. They switch it up on you. Do they have anything like that?
They do. They'll have like mango pie, or they'll have like the chocolate the chocolate coconut one,
Right.
which is really good. And the way they do their pies over there is the old way, where it's fried instead of the baked, so it still has the good crispy crust.
and I always wonder, like, why don't they sell that here? Like, that would be a big hit. I would love a mango pie.
Oh yeah, I know. I wish they would do that because it is so good. And then they have other ones like the taro or the ube pies. They'll have that. So they have different seasonal pies in Hawaii, and a lot. Oh, they even have the guava, because that's what Hawaii's known for. So
okay, let's go ahead and go to our friend there in Dallas. Go ahead and share your story.
That's kind of funny how you brought up Hawaii, because I was going to bring up my time in Hawaii. So this one was kind of a little bit different. It's a time zone mishap. And the travel was between me and my husband and my mom and dad and my brother. So it's my parents' first time in Hawaii. My husband and I have been there before, but I was the one who was planning the whole trip. And somehow I had missed this. And I forgot the landing was supposed to be on a Sunday, and I booked hotel from Monday to Friday. So when we landed, we didn't have a hotel. And I didn't realize this until we were already at the airport. So that one day was throwing off everything, because even our the car rental was also wrong for one day.
Oh, no.
So when we arrived there, I just had to grab my phone real quick and start searching for hotels. And I didn't want to book, separate rooms because it was so expensive. Our original plan was to stay in a villa. So it already had 2 rooms, but it was just one thing, like one lump sum. But now that we have this one night missing, I had to quickly find something that is not going to break the bank, and also will accommodate all of us comfortably. And then the other thing too is when we got to the car rental, I didn't have the car, so they were selling me another car for that day. It was more expensive. And when I was using my card and I was using a special travel card, hey, I want to use this card for the primary insurance. And they wouldn't take it. They're like, no, we need your insurance. And this guy keeps battling with me. And he had to call his manager and had to explain and re-explain myself about the card. So I think it worked itself out after, communication. And I think for me and for other people who are listening, we have to really pay attention for time zone. We already know there's a difference in time zone when we're planning, but I think sometimes when you're planning these trips at night after work, you're tired, you forget or something. I forgot. And, it was fun though. Nonetheless, it was fun. And we solved the problem. My family and I squeezed in one room. We got two beds and then one little bed. So there's 5 beds there to not break the bank. Otherwise, it would have been double because of my mistake. And as you all know, Hawaii can be quite expensive, and we try to budget everything and at the same time still be comfortable in our travels.
I have misbooked hotels before. It's when I was driving, while I was driving, or no, while I was not driving. I was not trying to book a hotel while driving.
I've done that.
But late at night, you're getting tired from all the driving, and went ahead and booked a hotel. I didn't bother to check the dates, and it was like a week later. And I didn't realize that until I showed up, and they're like, "You don't have anything with us." And I was like, "Oh no!" Fortunately, they were able to change the booking for me that night. It was a lot more expensive though.
I just want to bring up because like Jane had just made a comment real quick where she had booked a flight to San Antonio, except she did it for the wrong month. She did it for the following month instead of the day. So she ended up having to go via bus, and she does not recommend traveling by bus.
But I'll go ahead and give my travel disaster story. So when I graduated college, I was looking for my first job. And I found one in Houston that I was applying for. Now, the car that I owned at the time was a 1999 car, American model. Okay, so not the most reliable. They're not known for being reliable. And this car that I owned all throughout college, it had oil fires. It had a brake failure at the time, so the brakes weren't properly working. Just parts on this car were just constantly going out. I've owned Japanese cars since, and it's like I've never had to change any of these parts ever in its entire life. But I think it had like 200,000 miles on this thing too. At one point, it was like spider infested too. I mean, it's just like the most nightmare car ownership that I've had. But I get to Houston, and the car just won't start. I mean, it won't turn over. It just completely died. I thought I had a dead battery. And I was staying with the family there in Houston, fortunately. But Houston's big.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about like an hour to get anywhere. And yeah, I'm stranded in this city. I don't, hardly know anybody. I don't know the city. I get it towed to a car shop like across the street because I noticed there was one. So they towed it over to there. And they got it fixed with money that I did not have because I was trying to get a job at the time. But fortunately, I was able to get home and get a lot of that stuff fixed. But let's go ahead and go to the comments.
Sure. So we have Ren's greeting everyone, and he's also greeting folks in Kamanava. And we have somebody tuning in from Kamanava, which is in the Philippines. Lucky. And also John, Kenneth. We also have somebody saying hi from El Paso. So Matt is greeting everyone, and he's tuning in from El Paso. Jane is greeting us from Fort Worth. And Renz is sharing one of his travel mishaps. So some friends invited him to Baguio, and his dad took him to the bus station and gave him 500 pesos, not knowing that just going to Baguio, that's just the fare. um, Charles is greeting from Polo. Jennifer is also greeting from Kamanava. So is Charles. And then Jane shares her travel mishap. She said that she booked a flight to San Antonio for the wrong date. They ended up booking it for the next month, and they were like wondering why the flight was so cheap. They thought they had a really good deal. Then we have Casquera greeting Charlene. And Jane also has an additional comment there. So they ended up using the Greyhound instead to get to San Antonio because they really had to go that day. And they say that they do not recommend, riding the bus. Matt went to a theme park in California for a school trip, and they were hoping to get their paycheck during that trip, but for some reason, it didn't deposit yet, unfortunately. And then we have Kath, who's greeting from Balintawak, and that's also in the Philippines. Matt also adds that they were already on a low budget, and they got scammed out of $20 on Hollywood Boulevard.
I'm glad that you're the one reading the comments because we got a lot from the Philippines.
And you wouldn't know how to say those cities.
Yeah, I would have butchered that. All right, let's go ahead and go to you. What's your next story?
Okay, so my next one is I was traveling out of Orange County, and at the time we were having a lot of the fires, the forest fires. And so my flight ended up being delayed. And so I was supposed to go to Jacksonville, Florida, with a layover in Houston. And so by the time I got to Houston, my flight had left already for Jacksonville because we got in so late. And so because of, the airline was nice enough to get me a hotel. And when I got to the hotel, it was okay, but it was like out in the middle of nowhere. And normally that's not a problem. But the night before I left to go to Jacksonville and stop in Houston, I was out with friends, and I do not like horror stories because my imagination just goes crazy. But we ended up watching a movie that just so happened to have taken place in Texas, which was, and it had something to do with people getting killed with chainsaws. And so being stuck in Texas in the middle of nowhere after watching that horror film, I did not sleep at all that night. And so I was just so tired by the time I got to Florida. But yeah.
Was that the IAH airport?
Yes. And that's a huge airport.
You bring up that it was kind of like in the middle of nowhere where you were staying. And I remember stopping off there in the late 2000s. And it's like how you described. There's nothing surrounded that area. Not anymore. That place is all fully developed.
Yeah.
The development of Houston caught up to that airport.
But back then, literally, there was nothing there. Like I said, the hotel wasn't a bad hotel. It was just out in the middle of nowhere. And had I not watched that horror movie, I'd probably been okay. But because I watched that horror movie, it just did not happen. And another thing to go with that is when I had gone to Paris, right before that, I had watched a movie about a girl being kidnapped in Paris who was traveling by herself, and I was traveling by myself. So I'm like, why do I do this to myself?
Yeah, in Houston, I think chainsaw wielding people probably the least of your concerns realistically in Houston. But let's go ahead and go out there to Dallas. What's your next story?
So for my next one, you guys ever been to Guam before?
I was actually born there.
No, I want to go because I want to go visit my friends.
Oh, wow. So Nate, you're born in Guam?
I was born, but we left soon after I was born, so I don't really remember anything.
Okay, so this story is a story that between me and my husband. So when he moved to the States from Guam, it was a gas mishap. So pumping gas, it's usually green. And when he came to visit here and he was attending a wedding of my cousins, we borrowed one of my cousin's car, which is pretty new. She hasn't had it for a month. She's like, you could just borrow my car, you don't have to rent. Okay, great. So reception day, we're headed to reception. and we are following another car, one of our other cousins' car, to go to the reception. And then I think he's my fiance or boyfriend at that time. He was pumping gas, and he didn't realize that he was putting the wrong gas. And me, I'm just sitting there. I wasn't paying attention. I'm in the driver's seat, la la la, waiting for the gas. Before he starts the engine, he paused and he goes, "Why did I see two levers there? There was a green and a black, right?" And I was like, "What did you do?" And then he realized then that he put the wrong gas in, which was diesel on a regular gas car. Good thing he did not start the engine. And well, long story short, we had to leave that car there, and we had to pay that place to siphon the gas. And my husband and I squeezed in my other cousin's car in front of us to get to reception. So I said, "Wow, this is very unique story." I was quite upset at that time that I was like, "Man, how are you not paying attention?" Right? But years later, somebody else came from Guam. And I would tell him, "Hey, you know, when your friends come over, you should tell them the story about the gas." Well, he didn't. So this person that came over from Guam, and she's a nurse, did the same exact thing and told us the story after it happened. And I said, "Hey, you could have told her, and you knew she was coming to prevent that." And it happened to that other person because it's a habit, right? Not paying attention of the colors. So I thought that was kind of a interesting story. Just don't turn it on, and it'll mess up everything in the car. So it's an expensive mistake.
You know, now that you bring that up, because at least the good thing now is with everything being electronic, because my sisters and I went to Yosemite, and every time I drive, I got to be the one pumping the gas too. And so we stopped by the gas station, and I pressed the right button. I pressed unleaded, but then I picked up the diesel one because I wasn't even paying attention. But you're trying to pump it and nothing was like coming out. And I'm like, okay, why is there no gas coming out? Right. And my brother-in-law yells from the other car, "Hey, that's the wrong one." So then I returned the green and got the black and put in my unleaded instead of diesel, which my sister probably would have killed me. So luckily with it being electronic, it didn't actually pump the gas until I picked up the right nozzle.
And here in Texas, if you go out to some of the larger gas stations, especially the beaver themed ones.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're here in Texas, you know what I'm talking about. But they have, they will have diesel pumps. They will have your three normal gas.
Mm-hmm.
They will have an ethanol free pump also.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we'll also have one that is mostly like biofuel or something. It has a lot of ethanol in it.
All in one pump.
I think so, or at least I think they do a good job of separating the diesel completely. But yeah, you'll go to the pump and there might be like 5 options.
Oh wow!
And you got to be careful because I know that pretty much every car nowadays will handle your regular unleaded, or maybe you might have to get premium if you have that type of vehicle. But you can also handle the low ethanol. And they say that's actually better for your engine. Like when they mix ethanol in, it kind of adds more wear to it. But if you get the high ethanol gas and your car can't take it, it's really going to mess it up. So you do got to be careful about that. Let's go ahead and drop back to the comments, though. I'm curious to see if we got any more stories in the comments.
We do have some greetings in the comments, a lot of them. So Julie's greeting us from Fort Worth. Kath, Charles, Aubrielle, Cedric, Mila, John, Jada, they're all greeting us from Kamanava. And then more greetings from Leanne, who's tuning in from OKC. It looks like they're all greetings, so thank you so much for tuning in. We do have one more mishap here from Jane. Jane seems to do a lot of traveling. Jane says that they were driving in the boonies and the GPS took them to this country road that's not paved, but gravel for at least 10 miles. And she said that she was so afraid that she'd get a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. And at that time, it was getting pretty dark. So additional comments from Rashelton, who's tuning in from Fort Worth, and Isaiah, Daniel, Melvick, Matt, Jovelyn, Melinda, all from Kamanava. Thanks again for tuning in and joining us today.
All right. Yeah, what Jane mentioned about the gravel roads, that can be a complete mixed bag as far as what you can run into here in Texas too.
No, I know because, usually in California when I'm driving, it will take you to different roads, but I've never ever gotten rerouted like through a gravel road. But here in Texas, it's happened so many times.
Yeah, yes. You got a lot of those.
And like she said, she was driving at night. I drive a lot at night too by myself. You got AAA, but if you can't get access to a phone, then you get stuck in the middle of nowhere. You're like,
well, and the worst type of gravel road is when it's like washboard. So it's like really ripply, kind of like your background behind you. But it's made by like these, it's a tractor. So if you think of like a tank, it has those tracks. It creates a lot of these little divots. And so the whole time you're driving, it's just vibrating your vehicle pretty violently. The faster you go, the worse it gets. So you have to like drive slowly. And like Jane mentioned, like, yeah, I'm concerned like, this car's going to fall apart because it's so violent how much it's shaking.
Yeah. And then some of them where they're actual like dirt roads, it can get even worse because, depending on the wear of the water on how the roads are, where you could have like big potholes and everything.
Yep,
so yeah.
mud. Yep.
Yeah. And I used to have a smaller car, so that wasn't great. Now I've got like a mini SUV, so it's not too bad. But yeah, it's just crazy.
But yeah, so I have my next story.
What's your story?
Stranded. Speaking of like really bad roads, I got stranded in the jungles south of Dallas. So yeah, I did say jungles south of Dallas because that's basically what it is. So I got a friend who has access to land, and if you live in Texas, you have a friend that has access to land.
I don't. I need to make friends.
You probably do have a friend who has access to land. They just haven't let you know yet. But so I was driving out there. I had an SUV. I had all-wheel drive, so I thought I was good. And we're driving through like really tall grass, and we're pushing through like small bushes and everything like that. It was a beat-up car, so I didn't care about that. But there was some mud, and I thought, okay, all-wheel drive, I'm good to go. And I look at the mud, and like it doesn't look that bad. So and we were like a mile into this property too. And so I start driving through it, and we're going good for a while, and then we completely stop. And we're trying to do the usual of like, all right, let's put in reverse, and then try to rock our way out. And we're just like digging ourselves deeper and deeper into this mud. And when we talk about mud in Texas is like the really sticky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I get out of the vehicle, and of course, the mud is all the way up to the level of the SUV, basically. It's high-centered. High-centered means that all four wheels are basically not doing anything. So you're just kind of suspended there. And we are in the middle of the woods, and it's muddy, and we try to get ourselves out. So it's like we're taking branches, and we're trying to stick it under the wheels. Nothing. Absolutely nothing can get us out. We found some stones, and we're trying to put it also in there. And then we tried, jacking the car up on a piece of wood, and we broke the piece of wood. And we're getting late in the day, and it's like we cannot be out here in this woods when the sun goes down.
So how'd you get out?
So we had no phone signal either, just to add insult to injury. So it's like, all right, we'll work on this for another hour, and when you're out lost in the woods, you really gotta discipline yourself and keep yourself to like a very specific schedules, because you can go crazy trying to fix something.
Yeah.
And you'll go on and on at night. So I said, at 3:00, that's it. We drop everything, and we're just gonna walk out of here. And we have to walk through that tall grass. Now, when I say tall grass, I'm not saying like it's up to your knees. I'm talking about it's above your head.
Like a cornfield.
Yeah, without the corn. And we know that there's snakes out there. We know there's coyotes out there. We know there's wild hogs out there. And so like the whole time, we're walking through the tall grass, I didn't even bring up the bugs and the spiders, which there are plenty of them. Just trying to make sure, like, you know, we don't step on a snake accidentally. So we do make it out, and then when we make it back to the road, we get signal again. And I was with my friend at the time, and we called his wife, and he drove an hour out there and he picked us up.
Oh my gosh.
We did recover our car the next day. We borrowed a truck and we were able to tow it out.
Yeah.
And I had to fix my car after that. It got pretty messed up.
See, I've never been stuck in the mud, but I did get stuck in the snow. Because when I was driving here from California, when I was moving to Texas, I went through a really bad snowstorm. And so my car kind of skidded off the road on a cliff. Luckily, there was snow. Otherwise, I would have fallen off the cliff. So it stopped me. And fortunately, there were these great Samaritans who had a truck and says, hey, can I tow you out? Because when I had called for the tow truck, they said, ma'am, it's going to take between 4 to 6 hours because of all the mishaps on the road. And so they were really nice, and they kind of pulled me out of the snow. And the cool thing about that was they followed me until I got to flat land where there was no more snow, which I was really grateful. I wish I kind of had their information so I could thank them after the fact. But yeah, they were just, I was like, whew, lifesaver.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been helped out by good Samaritans on the road.
Mm-hmm.
What's your next story?
So my next one takes place in Europe this time. I went to Brussels with a bunch of my friends. And because, you know, I travel on a budget. So from where we got off from the airport, there's a train that will take you into the city. So we got into the city, and then the hotel wasn't too far from the train station. So we were just going to walk it. And so I had my phone in my hand for GPS so that I knew where I was going. And then I just stuck it in my jacket pocket, you know, because I already knew now where to go. And then by the time we got near the hotel, I reach into my pocket to try to reach for my phone to make sure, you know, I have the confirmation and everything. And there was nothing there. Like someone had pickpocketed me without me even knowing. And I don't even remember like going near anybody.
Right.
And they took my phone. So, and that was just the start of our trip. So I was there for 7 days without a phone in a foreign land. And like I could go without a phone, but my thing, I was just upset because I had all my pictures in there. And then now I didn't have a camera to take pictures. And, you know, like I said, we were in Brussels, but we went to like Ghent and Bruges and Amsterdam, and I did not have any pictures from that vacation. So I was kind of upset with that. But yeah.
Yeah, I can barely survive not having a phone here. Can't imagine being in a foreign country. Let's go over to Charlene. What you got?
I wanted to add on Arnie's story and also the phone. So when this was probably 4 years ago, I was using the phone and it went in the water, and obviously it ruined the phone. It ruined the phone, and I was so bummed because there were probably about 4 images that got saved because I was sending it to the text message, right, to save it, like sending it to my husband. But everything else got wiped, and I had to get a new phone because it went in the water, in the ocean. Yeah, it's terrible. But what I wanted to say, another story about luggage is, you all heard about a luggage disaster. So especially on an international flight, when we carry a lot of things and we have luggage and luggage after luggage, we didn't think that, you know, we should put our stuff in a certain way. Where I had one, the way we had it, we had some carry-ons, and maybe that carry-ons is only for sleeping clothes, right? It didn't have everything. But after this luggage mishap, that we didn't have our luggages on the connecting flight, we didn't have enough stuff for the day. We did have one luggage, but it's not what we needed. So what was learned there was, if we are traveling and you are going to carry one carry-on, to have essentials there for one day, right? Including your, you know, next day's outfit and toiletries and, you know, pajamas, right? Not just, okay, all nice clothes and there's no undergarments or something, no toothbrush or something like that. So that was pretty fun. Fun and really aggravating experience.
But where were you going at that time?
I believe it was also Hawaii at that time, and the connecting flight was San Jose, California.
Well, I mean, at least the good thing is in Hawaii, you know, you have civilization, so at least you could still purchase things, you know. Imagine going somewhere where there's nothing and then you can't even buy anything.
You're absolutely right. We could just buy it, but the fact of thinking that I have to buy extra clothes made me think, hey, how do I travel hack? How do I avail of those they give you like a stipend or something for one day to buy your clothes and buy your things. That's actually how I got into travel hacking. That mindset came from there. Like, how do I make more things affordable and cheaper, and also to be able to travel very nice, luxurious places that is not going to break the bank.
But at least you got a new outfit out of it, right?
Yes, yeah, I bought something.
See? And you wouldn't have done that if you had your luggage.
That's true.
Let's go ahead and drop back into the comments. What do we got?
Sure. So Romy Lou is sharing that when they were driving to Blue Ridge from Tulsa, he got a flat tire. But thankfully, they had a portable tire inflator. And then JR is sharing a story. When they were on their way here to America from Japan, they happened to sit beside someone who smelled so bad that, and it was a 15-hour trip or flight. And so they had asked the flight stewardess or the flight attendant to move them to another seat. So apparently it was that bad that they had to move. A lot of greetings again from various people from Kamanava. We've got Maria, Alman, Lucy, Ederlyn, Bernadette, Annie, Melgie, Rayan, Juliana, Lucky. They're all greeting us from Kamanava. And then we also have Gilbert just sharing that it's always good to pray before traveling anywhere.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead and close out with my last story. I'm going to wrap up two of them in one because they are a part of the same story. So I got lost in the Appalachian Mountains in the Smokies. Not fun. So this was my very first hiking trip when I was living on my own. Okay. And I decided I'm going to go to the Appalachian Mountains. And if you remember back in the late 2000s, what was real popular was like survival shows. I was like, that's me. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go survive in the woods. Don't do that, by the way. Don't have that attitude. Anyways, so I drive up to the Appalachian Mountains and I pick this trail because it goes up into this camp up in the mountains, and then you can camp out. And I thought, oh, okay, that would be real nice. 6 miles up. Okay, so totally doable in a day. So I'm walking down this trail and I accidentally follow like it's either a deer trail or a bear trail. It offshoots from the main trail. I don't know why I decided to follow it. Never do that. Okay, always stay on the main trail. And I'm following this thing. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm having fun. I'm like, all right, it's getting a little junglier, but okay, it's a little more scenic. And there's like, it gets to the point where I have to like cross streams. I was like, should I cross this stream? I was like, I don't remember that in the description that I would have to cross any streams or rivers. I was like, all right, so I go ahead and cross to it. So my shoes are wet at this point. And then it starts getting even more and more overgrown. And I'm having to like really like climb under like trees, fallen trees and all that. I was like, all right, this isn't right. And I go and turn around. And if you've ever been in the woods, when you head in one direction, it looks a certain way. If you turn around, you're like, I don't recognize anything. And so the panic starts setting in. I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at. I don't see this trail that I was on. I'm trying to backtrack and I couldn't find it. And so, you panic for like a good 5 minutes. You don't know where to go, what to do. And I'm like, all right, survival show. What do I do? It's like, all right, let me go ahead and follow the stream back down because it should, come across civilization. And I'm trying to follow the stream. And of course, there's no trail at this point. And so I'm in this stream. If you've ever been to a mountain stream, it's like ice cold. And I'm like up to my chest in this water. I'm completely soaked on this mountain. But I do end up finding that game trail again, and I make it back to the main trail. And I was like, well, I can't hike up, completely soaking wet. So I hike back to my car and I change. Okay. This goes to part 2 of the story. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go hike back up this camp. Let's not take any detours. I make it to the camp, the quote unquote camp, and 6 miles in. So you're talking to maybe a good 2-3 hours of hiking that I did to reach this place. And nighttime is falling. It's starting to get dark. Well, there's a sign at this camp, and it says the camp is closed due to aggressive bear activity. I was like, are you kidding me? Aggressive bear activity? Not just bears, but aggressive bears? And so I'm like, what am I going to do? And I can't stay here because there's aggressive bears in the area. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to get off this mountain. I can't go forward. I know there's other camps. I was like, it's already getting dark. I'm not going to hike in the dark. So start walking back, and I come across a bear.
What is it, a big bear or a small bear?
It was a black bear. It wasn't that big, but he saw me first, and then I looked at him, and he was probably like 20 yards off, and he spooks, and he runs down the mountain. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I started yelling at it because I know in that moment, it's like, all right, if he's scared, I might as well, encourage him that, yeah, you're the one who should be scared. So I'm yelling at it, even though I'm the one who's scared. But the whole way down that mountain, I was like making tons of noise. I was like singing songs, because I heard about that. Like, if bears hear, sounds, they'll tend to stay away. So
you tend to get lost a lot. I think whenever you go anywhere near not civilization, I think you need to bring flares with you.
I do use GPS now, so I don't get as lost. Although I've been lost with GPS too. I'm like, I don't get this. It says I'm here, but it doesn't look like I'm here.
My oldest sister gets lost with GPS, so we can't trust her with GPS. She can't follow GPS.
But I made it out okay. I've been lost like 3 times in my life, but I'm here today. So, all right. So that closes out our show for today. We'll go ahead and give our final shout outs. Go ahead, Arnie.
I just want to give a shout out to my sister, Cookie Peachy, Eileen. We were the ones who had to travel to Hawaii for $25 for a week.
All right. And your final shout outs there in Dallas.
I want to give a shout out to my husband for letting me tell his story, and also shout out to my friend Cascada. Hello.
And I'll go ahead and final shout out all those good Samaritans out there on the road that help us out whenever we have travel mishaps. So I'd like to thank our CFO coordinator and SEBC president, Brother Angelo Aranyo V. Manalo, and of course, our executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. We thank you so much for joining us here today on INCRadio South Central States. Be sure to tune in next week, same time, 9 a.m. Thank you.